Now we're on and Eastern European and Eastern trade. Wait, really? It's the next day, y'all. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, so I already recorded this, but I'm re-recording it. I was talking about the fact that I have a learning disability. I just looked up learning disabilities and I may have a couple more than I thought I did. I thought it was just the ADHD, babe. No. No. And I was like, "Oh, how did I get so far in school?" I know it's not dyscalculia because I did well in like algebra 1 and 2 and then pre-calc and stuff, and like I'm good with like, because math is like patterns. Geometry, um but yeah, it seems like a little bit of learning disabilities that are like not just ADHD, and I think that it doesn't matter. Now we will read. Yeah, I did say the Blackmores yesterday. Okay, yeah. Europe and Eastern trade. In Europe, however, the feudal system had exceeded its limits politically, economically, and socially. The European crisis that followed manifested itself in the late 13th century and came to full maturity in the 14th and 15th centuries. Like, okay, for example, like sometimes I'll read something out loud and then I'll re-record it, and like the second time I do it, it sounds better because the first time when I did it, I was like like just messing up in general. um it's really interesting. It's because like I already read it, you know what I mean? And then like sometimes I just like skip over words, or I'm like, but that's the thing. I don't know if it's like I just have difficulties, but I always had different things to help. Like I had this class in middle school where they was like, "Girl, you don't know how to read." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." But then I just get bored. And so like they did like all these different things to help with like accommodations, and I use those same accommodations to this day. That's like helped me with ADHD because I didn't realize I didn't know I had ADHD until I got to college, and I was like, oh shit, this shit is hard. Oh, I was supposed to ask for ADHD medicine. Let me write that down. ADHD medicine. I only have one left. ADHD meds. The European crisis that followed manifested itself in the late 13th century and came to full maturity in the 14th and 15th centuries. Whatever the root causes, and Wallerstein reminds us of how of whatever its root causes, and Wallerstein reminds us of just how subtle the scholars. Like I'll read better when there's a highlight on those sentence. I've noticed that too, instead of just black and white. It's really weird. Um, sorry. And Wallerstein reminds us of just how subtle the scholars' debate had become by recalling that Edouard, Edouard, Perroy's thesis was that it was a saturation of population and the limits of agrarian technology, while R.H. Hilton believed that the primary cause was the overbearing expense of feudal superstructures inflated by war and leached by peasant insurrections and famines. Europe's population declined, and its markets, trade, towns, villages, and cultivated areas contracted. It was not, however, a purely internal affair, nor one entirely dependent upon events or elements encompassed by human society. It remains for one such force to be noted for the devastating role it played in the crisis of 14th century Europe. Sorry, I have a dry mouth. Pink lemonade. Along with quite a few other historians, Trevor Roper had added in his list of suspects behind the collapse of Europe, the Mongol Empire and its dissolution in the 14th century. Let's highlight that. His reasons included the ideological importance that the Mongol movement immediately assumed in the minds of European Christian rulers. Here's the quote. Here was a powerful second front against the Mamelukes, 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 and Turks. Here also was a huge, okay guys, I said phonomics instead of phonics. But the way I said it, it would have been, I wish, that was really funny though. It was really funny that I said that. Because I was like, we really need to reteach phonomics instead of phonics. And that would have been such a good joke if I actually mentioned it. Oh, God. I need to go back to school. And here also was a huge free trade area from Budapest to Canton, and both could be exploited. Thus, when the Crusaders' way of imperialist colonization had failed, the alternative way of pure and friendly correspondence succeeded. I think about that. Never mind. I'll just highlight it, and when I have a more like, see, that's my thing. Sometimes I don't think before I speak. And like, well, no, it's not necessarily that I don't think before I mean, no, I don't think before I speak all the time. Sometimes I have a thought, but because I don't have all the information, I'll talk about something based off of the thought processes that I have at that moment without fully considering like the whole picture. And it's so annoying when I do that, but not at the same time, it's like it allows me to see where I'm wrong and allows me to learn more. So I'm not necessarily like, I don't harp on myself about it. I'm just like, oh, I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Oh, excuse me. I haven't had my coffee yet. It's still a little hot. I'm going to just reread this. Thus, when the Crusaders' way of imperialist colonization had failed, the alternative way of pure and friendly correspondence succeeded, and in the century after the failure of the Crusades, Europe was still living successfully on the east, the great orderly tolerant Mongol Empire. At first, that is, in the 1220s, the Franks had mistaken the intent of the Mongols, basing their expectations on the fragmentary reports on the Mongols by Eastern Christians. Here's the quote. The Eastern Christians made a Christian King David out of the Mongol conqueror, who would have destroyed the Moslem, Moslem. Oh, he's trying to say Muslim, right? Muslim empire, who would have destroyed the Muslim empires. Moslem. Is he trying to say Muslim? I don't know. Who would have destroyed the Muslim? Yeah, that's what it looks like. Empires, in order to head for the Holy Land and liberate Jerusalem. By the 1240s, after a series of exchanges between Mongol capitals and armies and Frankish lords and popes, Christendom had been disabused of its error. It learned that the program of the Mongols was wholly and entirely based on a rule given by Genghis Khan. Girl, it just took me a second. By Genghis Khan. There is only one God in heaven and on earth. Oh, this is probably a quote. And on earth, there is only one sovereign, Genghis Khan. The Mongol Empire ordered the Pope and the Christian king to submit. Still, by the 1260s, Mongol and Franks were formally agreeing to joint crusades against the oh no. You know what? We're just gonna keep reading. Muslim Mamelukes. And by the first decades of the 14th century, the Italian merchant republics and the Mongols had established treaties of commerce. This meant that whatever other significances Mongol stability, trade, and technological exchange, example given, China's gunpowder and printing techniques, would have for Europe, still compelled by Christian dogma to arbor and shun the southern infidels, the gold, which largely let me reread that. This meant that whatever others this part isn't highlighted, so I'm having difficulties. Let me highlight it though, because this one seems a little bit more important. Sorry. Okay. This meant that whatever other significances Mongol stability, trade, and technological exchange, example given, China's gunpowder and printing techniques would have for a Europe still compelled by Christian dogma to arbor and shun the southern infidels, the gold, which was largely brought out of Africa, found its way to Central and Eastern Asia only to pave the route to Europe of the Black Death. William McNeill describes the plague's itinerary in its less nefarious terms. Not only did large numbers of persons travel very long distances across cultural and epistemological frontiers, they also traversed a more northerly route than had ever been intensively traveled before. The ancient Silk Road between China and Syria crossed the desert of Central Asia, passing from oasis to oasis. Now, in addition to this old route, caravans, soldiers, and postal riders rode across the open grasslands. They created a territorially vast human web that linked the Mongol headquarters at Karakorum, Karakorum. What? Okay, the Mongol Empire is right above China. I had to see where that was. Pronunciation. Karakorum. Karakorum with Kazan, and Astrakhan on the Volga, with Kaffa in the Crimea, with, oh my god, what are these names? Sorry. In the Crimea with Khan Balik in China, and with innumerable other caravansaries in between. Ostensibly, it was the revolt in the eastern end of the Mongol Empire, a revolt that would culminate in the establishment of the Ming Dynasty, which provided the chaotic conditions for the vermin to multiply. The account of the plague left by Ibn al-Ward, who died of the plague in Apello in 1349, had been generally accepted. And then two dots. It began somewhere in what al-Ward termed the land of darkness, Yunnan, Burma, in parentheses, before 1331. It then spread to China and North Asia, and then to Central Asia and Eastern Europe, all the time following the Mongol trade route between the Mediterranean and China. By the end of 1347, it crossed from Kaffa to the Black Sea to the Sicilian port of Messina. Within 3 years, it is estimated more than 20 million Europeans, 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of Europe, had joined the more than 6 million Chinese dead. Damn, it took them out. Okay, next part.